Hello everyone, welcome to an Untier talk. We're actually doing one of these again. Hell yeah. Oh god.
We're back.
Me and Jad and Specs, as has become kind of normal. This is so I do want to say right up front, we're back for a big event, the PUPL Power Rankings, that we've consistently done since we've started Untier Talk, doing a bunch of rankings for all these team tours. But I do want to say right up front, weekly recaps aren't going to be happening. Untier Talks might come back when we got time and can meet up for like specific big events. But if you haven't noticed, based on this upload schedule, like consistent Untier Talks are dead. I'm busy. Hijad's busy. Real life is hard. Scheduling is hard. That's just the way it'd be. Um, just, I never like officially post any updates or anything. So that's the situation. But we are at least back for PUPL because that's always a fun and exciting. Everyone's going to make time for this. So Hajad, Specs, and I have all made our own power rankings. All three of us have pretty different power rankings. We don't agree on very much. It's going to be hard to go through this. Hajad and I also did not rank our own teams. I am managing. He is playing. We just did not. We did not rank the teams that we ended up on, so there's a whole lot to actually combine. I don't have like one authoritative power ranking to give you guys, although we may end up with that at the end. We're just gonna kind of start um, talking through this, and I think the only real way to do the teams, because of how different our opinions are, is we're just gonna go in order down the auction results post, which I'll link in the description on the PPL Info Hub that lists all of the players. It does not list. Well, it does show managers that self bought on top, and then it has a list of players below, so you can follow along by looking at that post. And as we go through the teams, we'll talk about where each of us ranked them and why. Because like there isn't even a way to just to really effectively average rankings here. Like obviously you could, but they would end up pretty different. And the top team here is the Moo Moo Milkers by Vulpix03, a a new manager to PUPL, as almost everyone here is. This team is one that we all ranked. Well, Hajad didn't rank them because he's on the Milkers. Specs and I both ranked them just about in the middle of the pack. Um, it is a team that is very weird to think of in terms of star power, in my opinion. You have Hajad and Tasker, who have both like been busy and only come back kind of recently to play more, and they're both in old gens. You have Star, Osh, and Splash in the Swish starting slots. We also have access to the week one lineups, obviously. So Star, Splash, and Osh being like the big Sword and Shield starters. Powerful team, but not mainers in there. And then John Filch, who I've never heard of. And then Tack and Jabba the Griffin lining up the other old gens. Someone else start talking, please. That's too much of my voice.
Um, yeah, so we actually both had them in the fifth slot of our rankings, which I thought was interesting. I was talking to H before the podcast started that I think their ceiling is extremely high if they can like get that H and like I guess Tasker prep going for SS. I'm unsure because I don't know how much Vulpix um actually plays current gen. I think their ceiling is extremely high. I'm a bit hesitant to put them high because of that, so I just have them in the middle. I know John a bit. I think he can win some games. Jabba's can consistently do decent in like old gen slots. Most notably like DBP. He played ADV, I believe, in NUPL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit hesitant. They could be like a low key number 2 or 3, but I'm not convinced yet.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of the rankings, like we all have fundamentally different philosophical reasons as to why we rank where we rank, and yeah, I feel like the main reasons why Megazord and Specs decided to rank us a bit lower than where people might expect is just because of that team synergy style stuff. I would obviously personally rank us a bit higher than that, higher than like fifth or around fifth. But obviously, I have a different fundamental outlook to how well PUPL drafting should go. But yeah, I definitely think it's a good reason for as to why we need to be careful as well, because definitely the keeping the whole thing active and building and keeping all of that stuff ticking over is an extremely important part of PUPL. You can't ignore it.
So to my mind, the Milkers, it's actually kind of impressive that they still managed to go in fifth because there's a lot of power here, but I think they're the team, bar none, with the weakest support. You see that starting lineup I listed. There are only two other players. It's a total of 10 people. It's only Vulpix03 and Alcyone left. A lot of people here who are not known for actually building their own PU teams. Obviously, I rate Star, Osh, Splash. I'm sure Splash must have done some building in World Cup. I know you have SM covered, and TAC has Black White, and Jabba has DPP. But in terms of popping out the Sword and Shield teams, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how strong that is, and I think fifth is an ideal position as a team that clearly has a lot of potential because if you get Star, Splash, Osh, again, I'm just not mentioning John Filch because I do not know who he is, really going and picking up a lot of wins, that is a great place to start, and that is a pretty powerful looking starter core. Um, but it requires getting those teams into gear, and I'm not wholly sure how strong that is going to be compared to other teams. And I do think there are other metas that we've had where building has been relatively less important. I think this is one where if you don't have that on point, you can really start to go downhill pretty quickly. I also think it's just still very weird to see Tasker and Oras. He's not. I don't think of Tasker as an Oras guy. I don't know. That's just me, I guess.
I mean, it's difficult because I don't think the Oras pool is that deep, just in general. And having somebody who has some Oras experience is incredibly valuable. Like, I feel like the Oras pool recently has just gotten decimated just because all the people who used to play Oras or did play Oras just don't do it anymore. Think about like False, Pearl, like all those like old school superstar Oras players. They don't really play PPLs anymore. So I
Mm.
feel like Tasker, in that same regard, he was definitely a superstar in Oras in that same like regard, but he moved on into the current gens as PPL has developed or as PU in general has developed. So
Mm.
um, I feel like he can slot back in and reclaim some Oras supremacy. Obviously, I'm biased because Tasker's my boy, but that's my interpretation on it.
Yeah.
Sure. In terms of week one matchups, they are playing the Druddigons. I think this is going to be a pretty important week for the Milkers because well, we all have pretty different opinions on the Druddigons, but I think matchup wise, if you just put them head to head and go how strong are these players, I think the Milkers actually come out looking pretty good here, and if they can pick up um, an early win and some confidence and momentum, that will definitely matter for keeping that building and that working alive.
I, I
I
think
feel like
this week will be very telling for the Milkers. I'm
hundred.
glad that
I will definitely say.
this.
I'll definitely say 100% that having an E. I prefer in general in PPL having like a really tough first game because then that sets the standard, right? If you walk into the first week and you play the worst ranked team and you absolutely demolish them 8-0, for example, the actual standard that's not representative of the actual standard of how you need to build and how you actually have to play, right? And how you have to test. I feel like having the hardest test or having one of the hardest tests in the first week at least gets you into that rhythm of, you know, are we actually verifying each other's builds? Are we building the correct amount of teams? Do we need to practice more? Are we all comfortable? That type of thing. So I feel like this week will definitely be telling of where the milkers actually rank, and that hopefully that's somewhere high.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. So I think that's the Milkers. Oh boy, let's hit the Wrens. The Wrens are the big team. Literally, they're the team with 17 people, where everyone else maxes out at much more reasonable numbers. They had a bonkers draft. Tricks had the most money like the whole time, and anytime anyone upbid him, he just let them take whoever. And I'm not sure if that's because he had a pretty specific vision on what he could get, uh, and likes where he ended up, or if it was more of a I don't know, specific draft. I really don't know how to explain. Like it was interesting. I'm not sure how intentional this draft was to his vision. I won't say it was unintentional, but yeah. Aside from, so it's got LST and Eva Guerrero as two big buys, and then the rest of it starts to get much smaller scale.
I think you can throw Kepi and Decem in the big buys. I feel like those two are pretty. Even throw Expulso in there. Like I feel like that core five is pretty solid as
Mm.
a five.
I don't disagree, but I think Eevee and LST do stand out even more from the
Yeah.
rest as like in terms of star power. Someone like you're immediately afraid to fight when you get matched up with them. I think those two really stand out as the big hitters of the Rens to start. We'll obviously see where the records go and how everything goes. So
Yeah.
let's see. Hajad ranked Rens fourth. Specs
Yeah.
ranked Rens sixth. I ranked them last out of seven, although I will say basically my four, five, six, seven were almost entirely coin flips. I did not really know how how to rank the last four teams. I had a clear top three. After that, I did not know. So like I ended up putting Rens at the bottom, whereas for example both Specs and Najad put the Mag Mortars below the Rens at least. I really don't know. I don't think seven is totally accurate. It's more like a tie for a higher place. But yeah,
So with this team, I feel like me me and Evie, we've obviously had faith in Kepi in the past. We bought them for several auction or for like several like other tournaments, not PUPL, but when me and Evie are managing together, usually the name
Snake.
Kepi comes up. So I feel like when I speak about like the core five, I feel like those are the people that you can rely on to generally grab wins and keep the channel alive. Out of 17 people, it might be difficult in many ways to keep the channel alive. But when I like look down the list and I see names like JCBC, Sergio, and TSR, and just generally the entire team seems like it would be a very active space. I know Rosie from the UK community is extremely active and fantastic player as well. Um, Throw in Mincemeat, who's I believe a fantastic player, and so is Malekith. Um, I have them ranked like quite highly, and to be honest, they're my underdog for the entire thing. If they can like win against the like top slots, like your Star Masters, your K Tuts, your like TJs, like your really like top tier echelon players, they'll have a good PPL. But yeah, I'm not entirely certain they can do that.
I'm I'm just a bit worried, in all honesty, for the team because I absolutely love a lot of players on this team. I'm not big on big teams though, like at all. I think there are way too many people here. Even if even if it could be a bit of a net gain in the end, from a social like team standpoint, I feel like there might be too many voices kind of trying to like inch their way in to help, and it may actually hurt them some weeks. So that's the only reason I have them a little ranked lower.
That's an extremely fair point. I feel like
Yeah,
that was a big problem when me and Evie have managed in the past. And we've had like loads of people in the PU, specifically PU chat, is that I'd have a fundamentally different philosophy to the player, who would have a different philosophy to the builders. You would have like, and you'd have this weird like circling of, no, I think we should do this. No, I should think we should do this, and it can get quite frantic in that way.
yeah.
But I do have faith that the starting four players will get their own licenses, and they all seem like capable builders to just bring what they want, and with the support mainly like testing and supporting in the way where like you're verifying the builds rather than actually forcing their like ideals onto that other person. But yeah, I think that's definitely a fair point and definitely could end up happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, as for me, I think what I ended up sort of doing to mentally put them the lowest is that they don't really have players who I think are guaranteed to really hit it off. I think what we have here are a lot of people who could do very well and hit that underdog spot and make the playoffs, even take the whole thing. Um, but there's no one here who I'm like, even if the rest of the team starts crashing and burning, they can hold down this slot to an excellent record. Even
Mm,
Irigero, even LST, I think is possible for them to falter. And I think you've got like Spec said, you have a big kind of weird environment that's hard to parse out. A lot of people could go great. I see more potential for it to not go great. Is all.
mm. I
And some
feel
of
like
the
though,
like the support tricks Cappy Sergio Expulso, not bad support. Um, not the top support. Again, it's all reliant on these things coming together, which multiple teams are in this PL. That's not even super unique, but that's sort of where I ended up coming from.
yeah, I feel like yeah, I'm looking at the starting eight now, and I feel like with the Sam Expulso Men's meet, right, they have a really like a core three, which wasn't that much to obtain, but I feel like they're underrated in terms of how much they spent on each of them. Um, I feel like their value, their actual value, is a bit higher than what they ended up paying. And I feel like that might have been a feature of how Trix wants to draft was like get good value rather than good players. Does that make sense? Like really high ceiling players.
Yeah, but if you
Um,
ask me, that
so
might be the least scary uh, starting SS lineup of any team.
really, I
Yeah.
feel like they're underrated. Yeah, maybe it's
I
just me
mean,
then,
the
but I
Sem
feel like they're
is
underrated.
the Sem did extremely well. So that's like the big one. Expulso will get wins. Like there's no doubt about that. And Mens can play really at a really high level. But to me, if I was a manager and I was facing them, I wouldn't be as scared as like I don't know. Um, I don't know, like the Frostmoths or Huntales. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Yeah, I think we
yeah.
I think we've covered them.
Yeah.
Yep.
In terms of week one matchups, they're facing the Snap Trappers, which is interesting because okay, this is my team, but I do think you have a similar dynamic here, where it's a team that things need to come together, um, or they will fall apart. Where the support really needs to get off the road, stuff like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see what team can sort of get their machine moving faster. That's at least the way I look at my own team. You
Mhm.
guys may have separate opinions.
Yeah, I feel like with the Snap Trappers, the support is gonna have to really shine. Like it's gonna have to give people a bit over. Like a lot of teams
We'll
in
get to
PPL in
we'll
the
get to the
past have.
snap trappers. I mean, in relation
Oh,
to how it I mean
I
how
thought.
that relates to the vicious Wren's first week.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't really have much to say about that either, to be honest. Well, yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, the next team on the list is actually the Snap Trappers. If you want to move on to those.
yeah. I mean, I have these two teams ranked almost evenly, so I don't know. I don't really have any predictions for this. I think it'll come down to old gens though, personally. Um, and I don't know who wins those. Maybe the Snap Trappers, but it depends on like LST and
Yeah,
Heavy if they can perform.
I actually do think it's worth saying that the Wrens do have some really interesting, solid old gens. I don't think we talked about those as much.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm
Yeah,
I'm a big I'm a big fan of TSR, who had like one of the worst records last PUPL, but like he got ridiculously hacked week in week out and was still coming up with good teams. Um,
mhm.
Evagar LST, obviously known people. Rosie and DPP, I don't know how to feel about that. Never seen him play DPP. Their tour results have all been in Sword and Shield, but I don't know. They've got Sergio support. That's not nothing. Like he plays
Yeah,
DPP. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Trappers.
Yeah, we can move on to the track.
Let's go to the trappers. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So Hajad put Trappers last. Specs put Trappers second to last. They're my team, so I did not rank them. I'll say right up front, I ended up with a weird fucking draft. Um, I think everyone I bought, with the exception of Chloe, was under how much I would have paid for them. Like these were all people I considered underpays, but I also ended up getting several people that like I didn't even mean to get because I was just like, oh, they're clearly worth this amount. I'll just put them up, and then someone else can outbid them, and I'll wait my time. And I'm not unhappy with any of the people. I did a couple of trades, which are mostly just to help out other people who wanted to figure out their lineups and resolve some people issues. But I'm pretty happy with everyone I ended up in that. That's just to say that it's a very weird lineup that doesn't come together super precisely. Like I drafted both TSR and Bobby Dagan, and they both only signed up for ORAS. I had SBPC in Somalia. They both only signed up for Black White. That kind of weird overlap thing is
Yeah,
is where I kind of ended up. So
yeah. I
with
mean,
that story out of the way, I'll let you guys start with my team.
go.
do you want to go specs? Or
No,
me?
go ahead.
All right. The reason why I ranked the trappers last is because feel like the building support. I think I'm repeating myself from earlier on, but I feel like the building support is needs to do a bit more than what other teams need to do to combat the lack of playing efficiency in the top slots, especially, but also like just generally speaking, the support needs to really come good for this team if they want to make playoffs. Um, that being said, there is loads of support, and there should be a like sizable gap, I guess, in the capability of this team, for example, to support in comparison to other teams. But that being said, I don't have faith that even some of the players starting can convert a slightly better matchup than like an expected slightly better matchup than you know what
Mm.
was usually expected. So it really ends up like the ranking of this team depends on how much value the support can give.
I,
And
I
in my
think
personal opinion,
I think what you're looking
I don't
for
have that much faith.
is a lack of star power. Just throwing that in.
Yeah, maybe lack of star power, but I mean you can make that up if the support is good enough and based on how the team's structured. Like you have to have some really good support going in here, like some really good positive matchups to nick those games versus the top players. Um, yeah, I don't have that much faith. I don't put that much value in the like the idea of having like loads of builders and like loads of conversation around building. I'd rather have somebody like dictating rather than like a huge community of building going on. But I mean, it could end up working. But yeah, my philosophical approach is less on the side of support than other teams.
So my main issue with the team is the SS because I actually think you might have the best soul gens. Um, between UMZ, Bobby Dagan, SPPC can win, and Haysop is undoubtedly the best DPP player. I I'm just so unsure about some of the SS players. More notably like Squash and Easy. I know Easy personally, and I know he can win, but I've never seen him play the tier, so I can't really like say anything there. Um, and and also you have a cure for old gens. Yeah, it's mainly the SS for me that it's extremely less scary than a lot of the others. And I do want to say that I rate Greybomb extremely highly. He built the entire open run, which is very impressive to me. So I'm hoping he's the breakout star of this PUPL, and I hope he can do good things for you.
Yeah. Just to add a little bit more on, I feel like it's a good point that you made up, or a good point that you said about how good their old gens is. From my personal opinion, I feel like having a good old gens is a bit worse than having a good new gens. Just because old gens in general are harder to test for, harder to verify the team is for, so it can often be easier to cheese wins in DPP, Black White, wherever, right? In comparison to an SS or an SM. So, I feel like even though having good old gens is a good plus, it doesn't necessarily equal having a good SS, if that makes sense. In my opinion. Other people may disagree with me.
Yeah, from a value perspective, yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. So I guess I can give my manager perspective now. I don't think anything you guys said is unfair. I think an objective rankings puts us like maybe six at the highest. I think that's pretty reasonable, particularly if you look at individual star power, like the single best player. Before obviously the games start happening, we see who's actually performing. Um, I think Snaptrapper is ranked dead last in that for like the single star player.
Yeah.
The SS is definitely weaker, very different, and we're more an old gens heavy team. Um, that's kind of where I intended to come from. Obviously, not to the extent that I did getting multiple black, white, and ORAS people, but um, the way I looked at past PPLs and like who the big looking names, the big buys are right now, I thought a lot of teams were going to go um, more weekly on old gens and really focus on the literally four current gen slots. You win all those, you can at minimum tie the week. But you can do the same with old gens too. And I thought if I could get a really solid old gens core at a reasonable price and kind of shore that up, that would really help support what I want to do with SS, which is in the past I've always been a bit more of like a tour player, drafting heavy person, a bit more on that high star power, picking up names like Finch and whatever. In the past when I've managed PUPL or OMPL or whatever. But this time I really wanted to have a more like happy, friendly environment place, a team that can especially like keep things going and will be active and fun even when I'm too fucking busy to do my job. Was a big reason that I prioritized that. So I have a lot of people that I think have like the activity and the capability to really push themselves and put up good records, even though on paper they are not the strongest. I knew I definitely wanted to pick up Grey Bomb and Chloe because they both had some pretty nice breakout performances recently. Have been like some of my favorite SS builders recently. Um, and then yeah, the rest of the team I think is going to come around to support that hopefully. Squash and Easy, yeah, perfectly reasonable to be reticent about trying them. I obviously do have some other people to throw in current gen slots, but I do want to start with them, see how they do, and I'm hoping things work out. But I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's unfair to rank that low. I do think we are the least scary. I think I said someone else was the least scary um, SS startup, the Milkers, but I no, I think that's us, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to
Yeah.
point out.
That being
I was
said,
like mentally not ranking my own team there.
yeah, the Trappers is probably my favorite team, if that makes sense. My favorite team, but it's also the worst team. That's uh, that's how I view it. Like I would love for you guys to win, but I just don't see it happening. Like I would absolutely love, but I mean, yeah, the likelihood of it is, in my opinion, quite small.
Sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm happy with the sport. The other thing I do really want to see how this old gen works out. Maybe this is maybe this ends up being like a very stupid gambit, and yeah, old gens are two variants, and having like, and I do think we genuinely have the strongest old gens core of any team. Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's still two variants. Maybe that's just not enough to actually pick up wins. The best it can do is like get us to ties when our SS is underperforming or whatever. Um, but it's the gambit that I wanted to take, and we'll see how that works out.
I hope it does as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
Who's next? Is it the Magmortars?
It is the
Mags.
Magmortars. This is a weird team to rank.
Yeah.
Specs has him dead last. I have him fourth at like the higher end of my basically all five of these teams are equal. Hajad has them like third, yeah, third to last. What's that? Fifth? That's fifth, and only because he somehow managed to rank the Huntails lower, which we'll get to because neither Specs or I remotely agree with that. Like I said, we're all over the place. Weird team to rank. I think, yeah, it's just hard. Their like starting SS lineup is ZS, Ryza, Drud, and PDT, and right there, like that's a mouthful to analyze.
Hmm. Chaotic is the one word that that came to my mind at least. I feel like this team is just ultimate chaos incarnate in a team. And it might work out for them to be fair, but I think I reflected my skepticism a bit in my ranking of them.
Yeah, okay. So I do have the overall PUPL record sheet. I could not find the World Cup record sheet, unfortunately, which might help to inform some of this. Um, but I did want to point out so ZS last PUPL put up a nice 5-2 record, and since then he's not played a ton of current gen. He has the potential, but like as a slot one SS starter, weird to analyze. Ryza only came back very recently, but like tried out with me, showed some builds. I was pretty impressed with him. I was definitely like he was definitely on my list of maybe I can pick him up, and I think I'd already spent like a ton of money and could not pick him up, but I do have faith in him. But again, another person who's kind of coming back after being more recent. Uh, Drud has a lot of good old gens results. Current gen, not so much. He definitely can do it, but again, weird to see him starting current gen. And then Pink Dragon Tamer, tour player that I actually have a good amount of faith in him, picking up other tiers and doing really well in their PLs and stuff. And he also has like UU results, I believe, um,
Mhm.
but not the kind of star four slot name where other teams have like Team Charm or Sigeniter or whoever in those like four slot tour player bits.
Yeah, so Team Charm is Charm Flash, right? And who's
No,
Wingless?
Team Charm is not Charm Flash.
Oh,
Different guy, but had a did got to like slam semis just now I think and has done well on other tours.
oh yeah, he's that guy. He's that guy. I always just thought he was Charm Flash to be honest. Fucking hell.
No, but he did
But who's
play
Wingless?
Charm Flash in slam playoffs.
Oh fuck. Okay, and who's Wingless?
Wingless is Skip Cam.
Skip can.
Wingless is Skip Can. Oh,
Yes.
my boy.
Name change.
Okay. Did he name it? I don't rate that name change. I can't lie.
Yeah, don't ask me. And like that's the chaos in the Swish starting slots, which I don't think you guys would disagree. That's weird to analyze. Before you even get to these old gens, like, eh,
Yeah, I don't know.
like
I don't even
Skip's
like
been
not
around
rate
for a
this team.
while.
I just don't know.
Skip's been around for a while and had some great results, had some not great results. I think he's usually better in individuals than in team tours, like a lockjaw
Yeah.
type thing. I have no
Yeah.
idea. I have no idea how Manny's going to do in ORAS. Again, someone who's like come back after not playing for a while. Bush Tush is going to get past cheese teams and actually probably put up an even record. Um,
Yeah.
Alice has done historically not bad at DPP, but I don't really know how to rank the DPP field. I think Alice is fine, but I also think every other DP player is like, yeah, they'll probably do well, and they can't all do well. But
Yep.
I don't know. This is so weird.
Yeah, I want to reiterate. It's not that I don't rate this team because I think they have some players. I just don't even know what to say. Like, I don't know if the cohesion is there. I don't know if the support is there. Like I think it is, but I'm unsure.
Well,
Yeah.
Roxy's going to be building Black White for Bush Tush, which is interesting because like I think if Bush Tush just gets past cheese, he'll do really well. But if Roxy tries to go really serious, I don't know how. Like Bush Tush is a pretty good player, um,
Yes.
but I usually and I'm not even I'm not trying to say cheese in a derogatory way. I usually see him at his best when he's like not necessarily like a cheese playstyle like Trick Room, but just like pulling out some nonsense and then just like knowing how to eviscerate someone who wasn't prepared for like the surprise thing with them. Um, is usually how I tend to rate him. You've also got Avarice support on this team, and maybe Gorex, who's like an active guy who likes building, but I don't think he usually does PU support. And then I guess Ozma, Mackie, and Dolly are probably just subs. I've never seen them actually build PU.
I don't know. I
I know.
don't have any.
The only person I know that like I know Ozma has tried PU because she's friends with like Chloe and me and all that. I hope she gets to hit the field at one point, but I don't know. Um, I know they know the tier at the very least.
Yeah, it might end up happening for them. You know,
Yeah.
with a chaotic team like this, they can very easily come in, come out, sub in, whatever. They'll probably get a few games. Um, so
I,
yeah,
I'm not sure if the sport's even a big deal. Like ZS, Ryza, Dread, PDT. I think just between the four of them, even before you mentioned like the average support, I have reasonable faith in their building capabilities. ZS
yeah, but
has
something
been
like
less
Busy,
active, but has generally been a builder I'm pretty okay with. Ryza, like I said, just came back, did some pretty good stuff in tryouts that I was impressed with. So they've got it there.
yeah, for sure they do. But you know, 1 week you might need a sub, something like that. I feel like they'll get a couple games at the least.
Yeah.
I'm just unsure of the quality of teams. Maybe that's where I'm a bit worried about.
Yeah,
Not that
average should be
average
fine.
can't make quality teams, but like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I
For
feel
like
like
four people, and like some of them just came back, and some of them are a bit unproven. Like it's
yeah,
tough.
it's 100% tough. I don't know how well Avarice is going to keep up. That being said, if Avarice does keep up, they will put up decent records with their teams.
Yeah, and then
Um,
hopefully the old gens work. I guess.
yeah, I mean the old gens. If my theory comes to fruition, where old gens is just variance 50-50s the entire time, I feel like they'll be fine. They won't do well, but they'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
Unless one of their chaos players like fucking Bush Dish goes 6-0, that would be crazy. That's where their star power is.
Not impossible, but I think most teams do sort of have that X factor. I don't know that's like way stronger here.
Yeah, I don't. That's going to be their. That's going to be where their playoffs come and go. Is like, do the old gens all just go 2-5, or does somebody put up like a 6-1 or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough to be consistent in black white though. Like that to me is the most variance tier.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's where I think our skepticism comes from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't even know where to start with black white slots.
Yeah, this is gonna be weird. Okay, Huntails. This is a pretty so Specs and I both put Huntails pretty high, second and third. Hajad put Huntails like well at the bottom, and we'll get into that. It's more of the
Wait, what, bro? It's sick. I think the entire field is extremely close together, so I don't want to undersell them.
Sixth in
well,
comparison. But yeah, like we all have the lower teams being pretty close. No one team looking super bad, but that's still a notable difference. Like,
yeah, it's notable, but I don't think it's like crazy different. You know what I mean?
I think it's like for your ranking, it's the fact that you have them below some other teams, where like I think they're notably better than like the Mags, for example. But yeah, like
Yeah, that's the thing. This team is weird to me because, in my like evaluation, I don't think that I basically took into account that this team was basically a friendship team, right? So, it can be easier on a friendship team to slack off. I think we spoke about this before, but it can be easier on a friendship team to sort of slack off and not do the due diligence of whatever, and instead just have complete blind faith in your friends, rather than actually take into account like the fundamental flaws of what like somebody is saying. Um, that being said, with slots like Katat and TJ, they will get some really good records out of them, and it really comes down to how the rest of the six perform. Like, you're pretty sure GA will put up something, but with the rest of them, it could end up going badly. And I don't want to see it go badly, but I don't have enough faith or, like enough faith or enough like belief that they'll put up the necessary results. But I mean, sure, I can understand completely why you guys rank them high.
yeah, well, there's a difference between like so this is a friendship team like the Wrens, like the Trappers. I mean, all teams have it to a degree, but this is more of a like okay, we have a set core of people that are gonna be doing the main support stuff. This is the set core people behind the Clay Dolls from last year. A lot of the same names, especially the Katut TJ Yandod core in particular. That's notable. That's not nothing. They are proven there, having brought that through a pretty successful team. I do think that's important to note. I actually didn't check. Like those are the three names I recognize. Obviously, I didn't check if anyone else on that team was on Clay Dolls or if they
Vino,
put
I
it.
believe.
Lambo probably. Yeah, PTF was also a Clay
ETF
Doll.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. The only player to me on that team that is, and this might sound like complete gas, but the only player to me that really stands out as like a consistent player that I'd expect to go like 6-1, 7-0 is Qatar. I don't expect 6-1, 7-0 out of anyone on that team apart from Qatar.
Last year,
TJ,
last year TJ went.
like TJ is too
Last year
volatile.
TJ went 7-2. Last year Lighthouses went 6-2.
Yeah.
In
like
Ors again. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like both of them though are generally speaking higher risk players. Like they'll take risks, and especially in the building climate in both those tiers, where SS is sort of weird. Like it's at a point where it's kind of balanced now, but like there is quite a big advantage that you gain if you like bring a random crazy offense style team, and in Oras it's just nobody really knows how to build in that tier anymore because all of the building talent has kind of disappeared. So Lighthouse is a good slot for that, but I still don't have faith that you know either of them will be able to put up the crazy high performances.
Yeah, it's not a short thing.
Yeah. I just took into account last PUPL a ton because I knew exactly what Keita was going to go for when he set up to manage. And I have a lot of faith in this team, 100%. I think TJ's still on top of his game for current gen, and he was last PUPL. I don't expect much different. Will they win the tour again? I don't know. But they're at least a playoff team, and potentially like semis, and yeah.
I do think it's worth talking about a bit of the gap though. So like you have the Katut TJ. After that, the SS is actually pretty interesting. They've got Mixim, who is like a DPP and LC player who also tried out with me and was someone I actually originally bought. I wanted Mixim, but we ended up working out a trade with the Huntails. Like he tried out with me and was like, "Hey, I want you to buy me," but he was also like, "I really want to play for Katut if possible." So I was like, "Okay, sure, we'll trade you." So yeah, I do have some faith in Mixim. Jovan has been a pretty decent tour player a lot of the time. Hasn't shown up in like he's not on the PPL overall record sheet. Maybe he played in World Cup. I'm not sure. I have a reasonable amount of faith in him, but I'm not expecting too much. And this is definitely Mixim's first tour. Phoenix and Black White, hard to know what to expect. And then the Yandod Lighthouse's General Annoyance. So General Annoyance has put up some great DP records. I think he had the best record last year, or if not, it was the second best record, and that was because of playoffs. He had a 6-3 last year. Yandod is a really interesting case too because he started out doing excellently. I think he went like 5-0 and then lost down to 5-3, or maybe it was like 4-1 to 5-3 or something.
Something like that.
Like he had a really crazy start last year and then cooled off a lot. And I think with all of these lower players here, there is going to be a real push for support and getting that building engine working the same way with the Trappers and the Wrens, but with this team starting off with the 2-star Katut TJ players that I don't think either of those teams have anyone that looks like that on paper. There is also, let's see, not on the starting lineup, there's PTF and Lockjaw and Lambovino, and I don't think those add much to the team in my estimation. I don't think they really change a lot of this.
Yeah. That being said, I do think what you said about the subs is a big thing because if somebody is underperforming, I don't know if you can feasibly rely on any of their substitutes to really go in and do some stuff. And I feel like Katut did get priced out of a lot of his players, right? Especially when you buy Finchinator and you can't even use him. Like you trade him for one of your friendship players.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see. I feel like I would have ranked them way higher if they integrated somebody like Finch, right? If they integrate somebody like Finch who's not in their friendship group, still is like a fantastic player that will probably start. I feel like I would have liked that team a lot more. because yeah, you get a lot of the benefits of having a lot of your friends around you, as well as the advantages of having a new face and somebody who wants to try and win
Yeah, it is probably
consistently. So
worth going into the draft really briefly because at the start they bought Katut, TJ Finch, General Annoyance, and very early in the draft we're down to like 23K and everyone else is over 80K and they've got like no money and sit out like the next hour basically. And then the rest is sort of who they could end up with. And who they could end up with is not bad in terms of people they can support to pretty good records. There's certainly a lot of potential from lighthouses to do well from McSim, etc. Um, but that really does inform what you see when you look at this team, which is like that starting core of four great players. One of whom Finch got swapped for Yandod, who we don't necessarily have the same like guarantee of a great record coming from. And then yeah, the rest is sort of interesting. So it does feel kind of like it's on Katut, TJ, and GA to pull the rest of the team to a victory, which is not impossible at all. Specs and I still put them high because of the faith from last year that well they did it then,
Yeah, they're absolute workhorses.
but
Um,
it's a dynamic, all right.
I would like to point out that it's funny they're playing Finchinator this week, and Yandout is facing Finch, so this is going to be like the big was it worth it? That's the big
interesting.
matchup of the
I
week.
want to say Yanda Finch was one of the people Yanda beat last year, but I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. I just found it a bit funny.
I don't actually remember. There
Finch
is
was
a
probably on my team, so I don't doubt that.
hang on. There is a PUPL 5 specific doc which I can pull up real quick. PUPL, yeah, I do have it. PUPL 5. Yandod was on the Clay Dolls.
This is PPL
Oh,
seven, by
that
the
was
way.
PUPL 6. My bad. I pulled up PUPL 5.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. PUPL 5. PUPL 6. There it is. PUPL 6. This doesn't even matter. I just want to know now. Okay, Yandod on the Clay Dolls. Okay, yeah, he beat Hajad, Royesk, Gum, Tasker, loses to Trix, loses to Luthier, loses to Specs, beats Soulgazer. So yeah, he went from 4-0 to 4-1 to 5-3.
Okay. Still came out on top, I guess.
He did. That's like a
Yeah.
that's hard to analyze how he's gonna do.
Yeah. Maybe a bit momentum based of a player than I had thought of, but I mean, I just trust the workhorses on that team.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You're
yeah.
All right, three teams left to go. Uh, Scraggies with Termy. We all put this team pretty high. Yeah, yeah. One first, one second, one third between us. Uh, Team doesn't look so bad. Termy, the only returning manager from last year,
what the
has
fuck? That's a statistic.
that
What
is
the
a
hell?
statistic. Yeah, I have managed in the past, but Termy and I are the only two people who have managed PUPL before, just between us. It's crazy, I know.
Interesting. Crazy.
So Termy puts up a pretty strong looking SS and some pretty weird looking old gens. Um,
Hmm.
SS core TDK, Termy, Felleburn, Sigeniter. That's how I say it. I'm sure people say it differently. Um,
Yeah.
that's strong, and that's one main who I really expect to be doing a lot of building. And which is weird because you look at who else they've drafted and their support, their only like other real building support that I see is Asa, who's also starting Oras, which is weird enough to build for. I have no idea how they're gonna do, and I have faith enough in Termy that like they know what they're doing there and have figured something out. But that is pretty weird to see that kind of lineup without more building support. Um, yeah, I guess we all kind of put it highly because we still justify that as they'll probably do okay. And then the old gens are kind of nothing to sneeze at. Finch,
Hmm.
Asa, Shuckle King, Sky Solo. People who
Yeah.
have played these gens before, but no one has like a massive standout great record. Finch is
Yeah.
Finch obviously. He but like He went from the 6-0 in PUPL 5 on your team with your support to a 3-4 in PUPL 6. So,
Yeah, with the thing with Tammy's team, right, is I feel like there's huge depth in every position, right? Because I feel like if Asa, for example, cannot perform too well, or they end up feeling more comfortable in their building role, like a purely support role, they can easily sub someone in like Raichi or Eternally, both of whom I rate individually as players, or Snagger even, who's also a fantastic player, in that Aura slot, or even in the black white slot or the DPP slot, in any position. I feel like they have like a huge amount of depth, and I feel like the SS is probably the best built out of the entire PPL. Like in terms of like TDK, who will give Kitut, for example, a really good game in SS. I don't know if they'll win, but I feel like he's one of the only people that will give Kitut like a really good game. And in the rest of the three slots, I feel like Termi is a fantastic player in terms of a second slot, and then Snyder and Feli are really good final slots, just because those slots tend to be a bit worse in terms of playing power. Both have, you know, masses of Tora experience and a good amount of PU experience to add on to that as well. So overall, it just feels like the Sraggies have the best built team out of all of them. And Finch, of course, knows what's going on in SM.
yeah.
I don't know how much you guys agree with that, but I feel like we're all on that same sort of wave.
We all have them in the top 3, so we agree to
Pound-
some extent.
Pound for pound, scariest starting SS lineup, in my opinion. Straight up.
Probably.
It's just the support is so weird here. Because, like you said, great depth on these subs. You didn't also mention Jisoo and LPZ are also on the bench there. That's not bad sub depth, even for the old gens. Still not totally sure who's building for them. It's just weird.
Well, it's Termi for SS, right?
It is Termi. Yeah,
Termi's gonna have to do a lot of workhorsing, and I know
Yeah.
she's a player who can get very frustrated and be like, "Oh fuck this tier! I gotta keep building more and more teams." I don't know that she's gonna have fun.
No, fair enough for that. Yeah, that's why the Scraggies are not the number one team to me. It's the building and
Yeah,
how much needs to be done by one person.
Yeah, I have entire faith in Termi just because SS, I feel like she's not going to be the only builder. I feel like she will have support from, fantastic tour players around her. And generally speaking, good tour players won't just not build. You know what I mean? Some won't, but I feel like the ones that she's bought will want to have some type of input. And I don't think Finch will even allow just somebody to just be like, "Yo, what's my team? Okay, I'm playing in 2 minutes." I don't think that's an environment.
Oh, for sure. I'm sorry. I want to clarify. That's not what I don't think that's what's going to happen with them. But I do think that the less experience you have building for this tier is pretty interesting. Particularly looking at recent Slam replays. I think there's been a marked difference in the teams that have looked good and the teams that have looked kind of dumb. And I'm talking not Slam, not the PU Slam. Playoffs. Actual playoffs from almost no PU mains in there. People who have either built or gotten better teams and sort of found a hole in the meta. Who was it who won 2 days ago with this cool little Vikavolt team like that versus teams that didn't look like they figured it out? If anything hurts them, it's going to be the lack of experience there. They're a team that I think is not immune to crash and burn.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I feel like every team has that risk, but yeah, full on, I do think that could be an issue.
I don't know. Still threw them up a second. I will say week 1 they're playing the Huntails, which is going to be fascinating, and I do think I basically we're like, okay, these two teams I think are kind of even. Whichever one wins, I'll rank them higher.
Yeah, I feel like in the Huntails matchup, generally speaking, the Scraggies are a bit more favored or if you just look at who their players are, right, you generally favor them more. It's really going to come down to, or this game could come down to how good the Huntail support truly is, right? And I feel like if you can really throw in we can almost value how good support is versus little support just by this fixture and see, okay, it might be worth like re-ranking after this week, because then you get to see like, oh, this is what support brings you, or this is what support doesn't bring you. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I will say, if the Huntales lose to Scraggies and it's not a complete blowout, I think I have faith that they could turn around and start putting up some good games next week. I think if Scraggies suffer a bad loss, I think that would hurt them a lot more. I think a bit more is riding on them for this first week.
No, I feel like that sets the standard. I feel like some teams you will need a first week just to understand the standard of who you're playing against, what's happening, all that type of stuff. And if you guys think that the Huntales are going to be a playoffs team, a loss versus them wouldn't be that crazy, in comparison to losing to a weaker team.
Both of these teams are making playoffs.
Yeah.
Anyways,
we both have them in playoff slots. Okay.
Wow, specs.
I
feel that was a massive indirect.
So next is the Fruity Frostmoths, managed by Ziri. So as we've been doing this and talking, I have sort of started to try to coalesce our very different rankings into like an average, what our 3 rankings come out to be. And I believe based on that average, we would put Frostmoths in number 1. I have them 1, Jad has them 2nd, Specs has them a bit lower at 4th, and we'll see with the chat, but I think that's kind of where the average ends up putting them out.
Scraggies go first. Because Scraggies have 1st, 2nd, 3rd versus 1st, 2nd, 4th.
You're right. Scraggies actually would be one above. Oops.
But I don't think it matters too much. I feel like we're talking about the top 2 teams. There's not really much of a difference.
Yeah.
We can make an official thing at the end.
Frostmoths look good. A bit more on the mainer power is really the thing. If the Scraggies are the team that's got like the big tour player power here, the Frostmoths are powered by Tlenet and Jiri and Lily, Llamas and Kink, also kind of come closer to the mainer side. Even Aldo, more on that side than the tour players side. And then Rob Jr., Team Charm, not a bad couple of people to round out your SS. Not bad at all.
Yeah, I think with this team, there is a nice mix between players who will like work for others and also players who are very self-centered and individually focused. Like somebody like Ted and Rob Jr., they will throw up numbers if you give them if you support and play around what they like. I do have a bit of faith that Tlenet and Ziri will be able to keep this team ticking over and keep the people who are more individually focused happy. That's why I ended up ranking them 2nd. I just don't think that they have the absolute best built team. You know what I mean? Like in each slot, I feel like they have a bit worse of a shot than say the Scraggies. But I mean, you have Tlenet support, anything can happen.
Yeah. So I guess it's on me a bit because I ranked them 4th. I would like to say that the top 4 teams, it's weird. I don't think in my rankings they're that far from each other. I think all these teams are amazing. It's hard to justify looking at the team. I'm not worried that Tlenet won't be able to build for like SM and SS and all that, because I have infinite faith in Tlenet, best builder right now. I don't know. I wish they had a bit more support, just a bit. They would be the scariest team if they had a bit more support.
Yeah, their bench that we haven't hit is kind of weird. You've got Z Strats, who, as far as I know, is purely in the tour player can sub in, but isn't going to help much with building. Maybe I'm wrong. And then Teddy, who signed up only to sub, and it is kind of unclear how much he can or will help here. I think he raised my estimation of what SM and Oras can do a bit if he helps give some pointers, particularly with Aldo, who has come out for Oras in the past and not done very well and kind of needed a bit of shoring up, and maybe Teddy will be able to help out with that. But yeah, it's kind of unclear where the support is coming from.
I don't know entirely, right? But what I do think is if Tlenet can cope with the building strains, which I have entire faith that both Termi and Tlenet can keep up with it. I feel like players like Ted and Lilba and Rob Jr. all those 3 will be particularly crude signings, right? I feel like Ted in particular will feed off of Tlenet's building, probably the best out of any of them, just because I know how Ted likes his teams. and Telenet generally builds in a style that favors Ted. That's why I think it was a really good pickup for them in particular. I don't think I would rate Ted as highly on any of the other teams apart from maybe the Milkers, just because he has a very specific style of playing. But I feel like Telenet fits in perfectly, and I do think that's a really good signing for them. I don't know too much about the rest of the building though. Yeah, as you said, it could end up going south if Telenet can't keep up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think there's a bit more to the building than even like the Scraggies. I think it's not just Telenet. Kink, I'm sure, has done his own PU building for a while. I'm sure Team Charm is someone who's just gone through or is still in Slam playoffs, has been doing a bunch of building for other low tiers. Rob Jr. did help build SM when we had him on. I was with him last year, and that was in SM, so I'm sure he can try building some SS. And then obviously you got Jiri around, so I'm not sure it's nothing.
Yeah.
Their old gens are in a weird spot though. Lily has done excellently in black white. I'm sure everyone has faith. Llamas is a weird DPP pick. I don't think he's ever had like a standout DPP performance or anything. He hasn't really played in any past PU team tours. He went 0-1 last PUPL.
Dude, I remember playing Llamas in like the first or second PUPL. Like I remember playing him in black white PU in like one of the first or second PUPLs.
Yeah, he went 1-3 in PUPL 1.
Yeah, that makes sense because I beat him.
Like,
that was awful back then.
I think Llamas could do fine, but aside from Rosie Bear, who's coming in with Sergio support, he's probably like the person with like the least known experience in this slot. Aldo went 2-5 in ORAS last PUPL, and both of those games were versus TSR, which is how I remember both of them. He got kind of lucky to win those. Might have won them, but at least like had some stuff help him along. Like it was not a good performance. He will need to step it up. I'm hoping Teddy will help with that.
Yeah. Ted will sort him out. But I feel like
those top five, I'm not a huge Kink believer, but he still puts out the records in these team tours, and the rest, yeah.
Dude, Telenet and Kink sounds like a fucking chaotic. Like, imagine having to prep for those two. Fucking hell, man. That's gonna be a crazy. Because you know what's ended up happening is not standard, and when you exactly when you expect like some crazy shit to happen, they'll just bring a standard team, and you'll be like, oh, oops.
Yeah, I will say I don't want to face them, and thankfully I won't have to.
Yeah, some weird shit there. We rate them highly. Okay, Druddigons. This is one of the other real chaotic teams. Hijad had them like sort of even with other teams, but ended up putting him third. Specs had him as his best team. I had them sort of even with other teams. Ended up putting them like a tie for sixth. Kind of all over the place here.
Yeah, I feel like we all have, based on our different philosophies on how we rank teams, I feel like we all have them in different spots.
I don't think they're that fucking scary. Punny starting first slot SS. Punny's great. Punny will do well. Sure, okay. Where I'm coming from here is that no one else is like, they're definitely going to do great. Sensei, I think, will do fine, but I don't think he's guaranteed the breakout record. DNB is a weird black-white player. He could still flame out mad easy. H. Sawa is in DPP, again, kind of that way. Pack and SM? Boof and Serene Grace? Umbri? I don't know. Like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not thinking this team is crazy. I'm not thinking this team has, like, some real camaraderie that I'm missing. I think a lot of it, especially, like, you look at the subs, and they're people who can play well, but not so much build well. I think a lot of it comes down to the gum support, which I'm not immediately as high on as the Termi or Telenet support.
I agree with that entirely. Like, that's why I have them, but that's why I have them third. I feel like if you look at each of these players individually and you put them in like a box and say how well is this person probably going to do, I feel like you have every player on that team going even or slightly above even. Factoring gum support, you probably go a bit higher than that. I think that's where they go out. I feel like each player in their own individual right is a really good player.
Yep. So I'd also like to add that there is camaraderie. A lot of these people team together.
Oh yeah,
a
there is
lot.
definitely camaraderie.
There's Booth,
TKO, Booth, and
TKO,
49.
Booth, Umbry, Sensei, Punny, Gum. Um,
I see it a bit.
SG's
I
probably
see it
in
a
the
bit. I don't
mix.
see it across the whole team, especially getting the old gens in though, which is kind of necessary because the old gens on paper like aren't even that bad, but I have a hard time seeing them come together, and don't know if that's gonna go so well.
I think they just try hard, and I feel like that matters the most in old gens when people. It's incredibly easy to just recycle teams and end up with a good record in old gens. But I feel like the old gens in this team are just try hard as fuck, and you have Gum as well. I don't know about you guys. Do you know H Soa?
I know them from like NU. PL.
Yeah, he's like a British player. It stands for Hot Skitty on Waylord, actually.
Yep.
I don't know if you know that. But he's generally speaking, I rate him quite highly as a player, just generally in lower tiers. He's really active. He's a super nice guy as well. I rate DMB just as highly. I feel like he's also a fantastic player. I've known him since back when NU was like the main tier. He's a fantastic player, extremely experienced. But just generally across the line, they have a really like a team that vibes like really well. Like there's a good amount of camaraderie. Maybe not as much as a team like the Huntails, but obviously I don't rate that quite highly based on my rankings. But they do have like consistently in each slot a tough like core. You're not going to easily beat any of their players.
I don't know if you take out Punny, everyone else is starting there. Do I think that more than four of the? Do I think it's like strongly likely that more than four of them are going positive? Not really.
I'd say all of them
I don't.
go positive.
I don't. I just
I would say
don't.
so as well.
I'm not feeling how strong these people are compared to you. Like, oh, these people are really good. I rate them differently. This is kind of a team where I did not bid on like most of the people that Gum was bidding on. We have pretty different analyses of like who's gonna pop off and do well. Maybe they all do well. I'm sort of expecting like at least half of them to put up something nice. Even playoffs, totally not out of the question here. I don't know that I see them winning.
So I think my closing statement on this is that I rate camaraderie a lot, and I think with camaraderie, if a couple of your players are doing well, they'll all start to do well. Whereas if you have just a couple star players and a couple other people who like you might be like active in the chat, only those star players will ride the momentum of their own games, and nobody else will. So that's why I have the Druds and the Huntails at number 1 and 2.
Yeah, camaraderie is my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah, that's basically how I saw this.
Yeah, I feel like it's quite different though. Me and Specs have completely different takes on camaraderie and like the team, like friendships and all that type of stuff and how they affect your team. We have completely different like ideas about that, but we still rank them quite highly respectively. I don't know about
Maybe that says something.
yeah.
Yeah, and I do rate camaraderie high like Specs does, and I don't come out with the same.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm being weird on this one. So that's all the teams, and I've sort of done. This isn't a precise averaging of the points of where we put them, but this is also taking into account like how we talked about these teams, how we had some of them like we all had certain teams that like these two are pretty close together in our rankings. And I think if you sort of average out our final rankings, you would end up with number 1 Scraggies, number 2 Frostmoths, number 3 Druddigons, number 4 Huntails, and outside of the playoff spots, number 5 Milkers, number 6 Wrens, number 7 Mags, number 8 Trappers.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds like
that's pretty good.
yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good like overall rankings. Yeah, if somebody wants to just TLDR this entire conversation with those 8, that's pretty good.
Yeah, when I put this up on forums, I'm sure I'll also include the TLDR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Specs, you really tanked the Magmortars there. They were good for 5th or 4th or something, and then you just like tanked them to hell.
No, I put the Magmortars in fourth, but like pretty even with every team below them. I didn't have a super high, and as we talked, I was sort of convinced to rate them lower a bit. So like that's sort of where I took them into account. I think in the strict averaging out before we talked, I think Magmortars would end up higher than Wrens, but that was like, okay, you're probably right, or like I see your points on this, so that's what I mean when it wasn't a strict mathematical average. Although I do think you're right with the way we talked about Scraggies over Frostmoths. Although personally, I still rate the Frostmoths higher.
That's fine. This is. I feel like this is the best thing that I've seen at least.
Yeah, this is pretty weird. I think the top few teams are very concentrated. The bottom few teams are very concentrated, and there's not a huge difference between the both, but there are like two pretty distinct concentrations. The star power on these teams is very weirdly split up. Some teams are like almost devoid of star power, and other teams are like coming out with it and have little support behind that. It's gonna be an interesting one, man. I don't know. I'm excited though. You get to watch lots of PU. So who cares?
Yeah, you're gonna see it all.
Yeah, that just about wraps it up. So like I said, I don't see us making more Untier talk stuff for this PPL. Maybe got the time and the inclination.
Maybe the playoffs.
Maybe the playoffs or something. Might not be back till World Cup or something later. Maybe it never comes back. I don't know. But don't hold out for Untier talk. Go find yourself another podcast.
Find yourself another podcast.
Go listen to Behind the Bastards. They're not paying me. It's a good podcast.
Yeah, I'll keep bugging them. Don't you worry, guys. Hopefully, I like doing these, so hopefully we can do it for playoffs.
But yeah, I was surprised by the amount of people who really wanted this cut to come back and were happy when I said I was doing power ranking stuff. That's why I made the effort to fit this in today of all days.
Yeah, you're super busy today. I still don't know how you managed to fit this in, to be honest.
right between two 2.5 hour classes. That's how.
Yeah, massive dub for Megazord.
No, this is not a good thing. Do not encourage this.
Huge dub.
Pokemans, come on.
Okay.
Start Grealish. Start Jack Grealish.
But yeah, I did appreciate the support and everything. It's what made this happen. But don't take this the wrong way. Don't bug me about it. If it'll happen, it'll happen. I see how you guys feel. I'd love to get Untier talk going again. But if it doesn't happen, oh well. Also, real quick, let's rank the art of 7 of the 8 teams. 7 of the 8 teams have art, and then also the overall PUPL 7 art. Actually, no, that's definitely that art's great. It's a great banner. Okay, the art of these 7 teams. Who's got the best one? Magmortars have no art.
Oh man, I wish I could show you our team, our team server art. I wish I could show you.
Yeah, your team is called the Moo Moo Milkers. I don't want to see it.
I'm glad we're out of answer. Okay, if the Dredagon said D's nuts, I'd rate it number 1. But I think I'm gonna go with the Huntails. I love that art.
It's cute.
Yeah, I think the Huntails is pretty good.
It's biting down on the Huntails part. I think that's so cool.
I'm gonna be honest. As you can see with my logo, I'm always a fan of like the more off kilter, homemade funny stuff. Like I literally called it the Snapchat because like, wait, wouldn't a Stunfisk Pokeball be really funny? And I made the art, and I was like, okay, that sold me on the name. So like in that same vein, I really like the Scraggy's art, but I think the Volcaronas, the Volcaronas, the Frostmoths, the literal opposite Pokemon, the Ice Moth. I like that one as like being professional and like well made in the same style as like the Huntails and the Vicious Wrens and that like a professional art piece, but also looking a bit more homemade and homegrown. I really like that.
Yeah, I'll probably put the Scraggies first just because it's hilarious.
I love the Scraggies. Like that's what I would make. That's great. I love the Scraggies. Yeah. I love my own piece of art. It's a nightmare, but.
Yeah, it's just the thing on the edges, like like the word art thing on the edges. It just sells it to me. It's just like this is hilarious. Wow.
Yeah, I love. Thank you, Tone, for making that. I was like, the Pokeball's cursed enough. I need some cursed lettering. Okay, I think that just about covered. Yeah, oh god, this has been an hour and 15 minutes. All right, we're done. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
It's coming home.